Friends. Welcome to the Connected Mom podcast. This past summer, I read a very interesting book called The Anxious Generation. It is a New York Times bestseller. It is not written by a believer, but I highly recommend the book because I feel for those of you that are parents in this day and age with all the technology, with how much, you're probably battling how much screen time is good for my kiddo, how much is bad. What do I do with my teens? How do I manage things like cyberbullying? And we're going to talk about all that today. And so I thank you for joining me. Here at the Connected Mom podcast, we love to have conversations that help you connect more deeply with God, more empathetically with your fellow moms, and more intentionally with your child. And so I'm Becky Harling, your host, and today's guests, you're going to love this. They are a very interesting couple. It is Delitha and Nathan Myers, and they have done all the things. I mean, for me to introduce them is going to be a massive challenge. So hang on to your seatbelts. They are both actors and actresses, directors, movie people. They are parents, which is good since they're on the Connected Mom podcast. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but they've just come out with a new film a couple of months ago, I believe, called Aria Appleton Shines. And I've watched part of the movie. It has all the bells and whistles of a Disney movie, but it has a very different message. And so I want you to tune in and listen today. Welcome, Delitha and Nathan.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, it is exciting. So first of all, okay, we are a show directed towards moms. And so no offense towards you, Nathan. You're a dad and we value you as well. Very much so.
No offense taken. I'll just sit here and drink my coffee and listen.
Coffee's a good thing. I'm all for it. But, tell us a little bit about your family before we get into the movie and all of that.
Yeah, we have a 12-year-old daughter. She's going into 7th grade this year, and she's amazing. She's a writer. She's an artist, and I've homeschooled her since she was 4. We've done all sorts of different curriculums, and I think we finally found our groove. I think we found it last year, and so this year's going to be awesome. And then we also have a 3-year-old son who is just the opposite in every way of my daughter. And we have not figured him out yet. We're still...
it might be a little bit of a journey.
It is so far. A big journey. Yeah. He's different. He's all boy. He's just all sports. Wants to, when we left the house this morning, he had a fit because he wasn't getting to go. He loves to go, which is very much the opposite of my daughter, who just wants to sit in her bed and read all day. So we have an interesting dynamic going on at the house.
It's a lot of fun. My husband and I are grandparents now to 14 grandkiddos, and 9 of them are boys. And so we've done the whole boy thing, and it is very different, and one of my daughters called me yesterday and said that her little guy, brought in a huge bug from outside and was completely fascinated with it. And my daughter was freaking out, so you just never know with boys. But it's so much fun. And it's such an adventure. So that's very fun and very exciting for you guys. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your careers in movie, and theater, because most of our guests that we've had have not had that background. And so we're fascinated. So maybe perhaps each of you can answer that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I got my start. I went to the University of Oklahoma and got a BFA in musical theater. And then I moved to New York because that is what they told us we had to do. And I did not like living in New York. I just didn't like it. I didn't like having to get on the subway every day, go into the city, work a temp job, audition as much as I could, go home. I could still hear my neighbors. I could never get away from the noise. It just wasn't for me. And so after I only lasted about 7 or 8 months in New York, and then I moved back to Texas where my parents were. And within a month of being back, I met this guy. We were both hired as musical directors for a children's theater there. And so I met him, and then I got work at a different children's theater where I got my equity card, which is the union for actors on stage. And so I had insurance as an actor, and I was fully employed just acting. And so clearly I was meant to be there. That is where God wanted me. He did not want me up in the Northeast. And so then from that point, I did lots of theater, went back and got my master's degree. Part of that program, we went and studied abroad in Ireland. He followed me over and he proposed to me in Ireland. It was lovely.
That's amazing.
It was great. The day he thought he was going to propose to me, who was it? Val Kilmer showed up at this place we were. And so he didn't propose to me on Val Kilmer Day. We waited until the next day.
He didn't want to be upshined, you know.
He didn't, yeah. And so then, from that point on, then we, 7 years into marriage, had our first daughter. And that kind of changed my course, because everything changed once I had her. All my priorities shifted. I had gone back to do a show right after she was born, and it was just such a different experience. And I had all of this new mom guilt that I had never had before. And so that was the last show I did. That was the last live show I did, because I just drew a line and said, nope, I'm a mom now. I'm going to be with her and raise her because she's such a gift. And once I kind of drew that line, then something happened in his life where we came together and we started making movies together. And so I'll let him tell the precursor to that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually, grew up, I'm a fourth generation preacher's kid, and my dad planted churches for 40 years. He's retired now. He's still with us, and 75 this year. And I have three biological brothers that we grew up singing and playing together. So I had a very musical, theatrical upbringing in the church. I thought I was going to follow Dad's footsteps into ministry, and I did for a minute. I went into seminary right out of high school, ended up in a youth missions program, ended up in Russia, studied Russian language and Bible. And then while on a mission, a 2-year mission, I was actually teaching English through the Bible and studying Russian language, and came back to the States, did a couple of internships with churches. I was trying to fit the creative cog of my wheel into my very conservative heritage. And I was feeling like a bit of a misfit, not as a Christ believer, not in that way, but in terms of my actual dreams and skill set and things like that. I was having trouble as an artist plugging in to my heritage. And so the Lord released me from it. It was like, no, I made you this way for a reason. Go be an artist, and you have permission to do that. And that's how I ended up in children's theater with where I met Delitha. And in those years also toured with my brothers quite a bit, touring music. I stumbled into film in 2004 and 5 because of a friend who was making shorts. I just took an interest in the film space. It was something I always looked at a distance, just wishful thinking, like, that would be fun to move to Hollywood and get in the movie industry, but that's probably not for a Christian. And so I always distanced myself from it in my heart. But in 2005, I got cast in a feature as the lead actor in that feature, and that opened up a whole new can of worms for me. And then that same year was hired by Tammy Lane, who is Capernaum Studios, to come in as an associate producer. And this was before Capernaum, but by the end of 2005, we had designed Capernaum Studios Village and Gardens, and then by 2010 had installed all of that, which became the backdrop for seasons 1 through 3 of the Chosen TV series. And so, and is now the backdrop for over 170 faith-based and Christian films, which is a really neat testimony to what God can do when you just say, all right, Lord, here I am. Here's how you made me. send me where you need me specifically. Like, what do I do? How do I best serve with the giftings that I have? And so I've been able to work on multiple faith and family features over the years. And I've worked on mainstream stuff too. And I'm often, I just try to go be salt and light whenever I'm working in a mainstream project. And so I've been in the film space for 20 years, often acting, sometimes directing, very often production designing or art directing, which has been a lot of my bread and butter. So.
That's amazing. I love that you both kind of started in the children's musical theater realm. I have a daughter that's very involved in that. She's often the musical director for, different shows. And it's been a really good space for these Christian kids to have, Christian youth experience in musicals. And so I love that. But you guys have recently created the movie Aria Appleton Shines. So tell us, that first of all, how did you land on who Aria was going to be? Who's this little girl that you chose to be the actress in your film? And what's the main theme of it?
So I taught musical theater voice lessons in addition to doing theater. And one of my students, her name was Sarah Grace Prejean, and she took voice from me. And when I wrote Aria, I did not have her in mind. I had this other student that I'd had years before. And I just kept picturing her, But then when we were doing the casting process, that girl, I brought her in and she looked so old. She was probably 13, but she looked like she was 25. And I thought, oh, that's not going to work. So, we had lots of other people audition. And then one day I was teaching Sarah and she made this little snide remark or whatever. And I looked at her and I was like, will you audition for our movie? And so I asked her mom and she said, okay. So they came in and auditioned, and Sarah was the last person who auditioned for Aria, and she was so perfect for the role.
Yeah, I looked at Sarah that day. I looked at her that day and I saw that twinkle in her eye and her old soul snark that was coming through. And Sarah walked out the door. I looked at Delight and said, that's her. I said, that is exactly what we're looking for. And so, yeah, that's how we found her.
She's great at the role. That was the thing that immediately struck me. I was like, okay, this little girl is killing it here, and she really does an amazing job as Aria. And so what is the main theme from your perspective of the movie?
The main theme is how to make good out of all of the bad that we seem to get ourselves into, and that God is able to take our garbage and turn it into treasures and beauty from ashes. These are the ultimate themes, the dangers of self-aggrandizement and selfish ambition. And where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there's disorder and there's every evil thing. And how do we manage this day of social media and follow me, me, everyone trying to build their own social media followings? And how do you balance that with a Christ-centered ideal of doing unto others, and the death to self, or the dying to self, and putting the needs of others before your own? How do you balance that principle with this day and age used in the tech world? So those are some of the.
And I was thinking, those themes are really strong for adults. They're often very hard to help kids get a handle on, because as moms, you all want your kids to feel confident, but promotion is a whole different thing, and then, you're working with your kids and this whole new world of social media, and even kids pretty young having access to cell phones and social media accounts, and it's really robbing our kids of their childhood. and it's also promoting bullying. Talk to us, because that's one of the themes I picked on from the movie. I'm like, okay, this is very strong to help kids see, hey, this is the kind of damage that's done when you bully somebody online, you know? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's a statistic out there that 60% of all children who go to some sort of school. So that's not the homeschooler normally. It's those kids that are going to public, private school. 60% of all those kids are going to be affected by cyberbullying somehow. That's a huge number. And then out of that 60%, 1 out of every 4 girls will self-harm.
Yeah,
So
that
sad.
is so disturbing. Yeah.
So not only is it robbing them of their childhood, it's robbing them of their life, And so in the movie, we deal with cyberbullying, and we show what could happen if you are a mean person online. These are the consequences that might happen. They're real. You might lose a friend. You might lose the respect of a family. Like there are serious consequences. And so we do address those issues in the movie.
Yeah. And you could put somebody literally in danger of nefarious forces that, could actually get somebody in deep trouble, not just physically, but one of our characters it kind of buys into a scammy proposed thing from her cyberbully, who's she buys into that, and that really the police get involved, and it gets really it's funny, and it's all presented in this very madcap kind of way, but we're throwing it out there just to suggest that, hey, the circumstances could take a turn for the worse if you're not careful, and you need to treat all of this stuff with respect. So yeah, it could be a whole lot worse even than self-harm for some people.
Yeah, I think the movie is it's definitely good for boys too, but I think it's particularly good for little girls, because girls sometimes, between 10 and 12 and even up to 13 and 14, they can be a little bit catty, and like, okay, I don't like her, so let's gang up on her and all this kind of stuff. And so, I think if parents watch the movie with their kids, that would be best, because it's got great great conversation pieces, like, how do you deal with that? And, not everybody is able to homeschool perhaps. So their kids are in school, and, how do you prepare your child for what they're going to face from other kids, as far as, just competitiveness and then the cyberbullying. Do you have specific tips that you would give parents to help them prepare their kids for what they may experience?
Well, I'm sure we do. But we did create the movie to create some positive conversation starters with parents and their kids, because I think one of the key things that is missing in a lot of homes is this open conversation with their parents. And so kids will seek out their peers for the answers that they're seeking, instead of going to the parent. And so we're giving the parent their authority back with this movie, and saying, talk to your kids about these topics. And if you're not comfortable talking to your kids about these topics, we've created a parent and leaders guide that goes along with each theme and has scriptures that ties back to these themes, and they each have 3 conversation starters. We have 3 questions for each theme to help the parents guide the conversation, and create positive conversations with their kids that is done in a not threatening way. You watch a fun movie together, and then you're like, hey, let's look at this. Oh, has this ever happened to you? Oh, you're the one doing the cyberbullying. Well, let's talk about that, or whatever it is.
Yeah. I love that. So where can our listeners get this parent guide? Like, if they watch the movie, and we need to get into that too. How do they find the movie to watch it? And then how do they find the parent guide?
If all anyone can remember is, one thing, then remember, go to ariaappleton.com. ARIA, like the song, and Aria, Apple, like you eat, and then TON, 10.com. ariaappleton.com. And it'll take you out to Prime Video, which is where the movie is. So go to Prime Video, you can search Aria Appleton Shines, and the movie will pop up. We have a soundtrack that'll pop up too. But that links out from the main website. You can find us on all the socials. And then to find the Parent and Leaders Guide, it is on this is why I don't do this part. He always does this part. I get it wrong every time.
It's okay. Tell us, Nathan, where can we find the Parent Guide?
The Parents and Leaders Guide is available at givesendgo.com/Aria Appleton. And if you're not familiar with Give, Send, Go, that is a place where people raise funds for missional efforts. And it's kind of like Kickstarter. We set that up for ourselves to help us fund some additional grassroots marketing, because we are on our own marketing this product outside of traditional Hollywood circles. And so we could use your help in that regard. But if you give any amount that Give, Send, Go, even a penny, we'll send you the Parents and Leaders Guide. And if you're not comfortable with that process of going through Give, Send, Go, then you can just contact us through Instagram or Facebook or email and let us know that you're interested in that guide, and we'll send you a free copy.
Okay. So friends, we will have all of those addresses and tips and everything in the show notes, because I know as you're listening to this, you're probably like, okay, I'm folding laundry. I can't write all this down, or I can't remember this, or my kid is screaming in the background, but I need this information. I really applaud both of you, because this had to have been a huge endeavor. So here's just another question. How did you pull this off while raising your own two kids? You've got a 3-year-old who I'm assuming is quite active based on what you said, and then God bless her, you have a 12-year-old who wants to read. That's a beautiful thing, but still both ages need a lot of parenting. So how did you pull this off while parenting your own kiddos?
Well, our 3-year-old Maxwell was not around when we produced this movie. He was just a twinkle in Daddy's eyes, they say, but he is great now, and we're managing post-production and marketing while having a 3-year-old, which is not as difficult as some would think. I mean, there are challenges.
Today I left. The grandparents came over to watch him, and we were leaving, and he was screaming and crying and wanting mama. And so it is hard.
That's a thing, but at least you have grandparents close by. I feel like that's the role that Steve and I often play, and so that's a huge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a good point. We didn't do any of it without help.
Yeah.
We had a good support system from church. We had a good support system from family, and that was important. But Aurora was really our daughter was the only child we had at the time while we were in the throes of the big production cycle.
Yeah, and so I wrote the movie during nap times. Anytime she went down for a nap, I was like, okay, great.
I love
that. And I wrote more. If before children, you think, oh, I'm doing a lot. And then once you have a child and you realize how much you can get done in nap time, I wish I could go back in time so that I could accomplish all the things in my 20s. But so I wrote it during nap time. And then when we were actually on set, we had a room full of mothers who were just waiting while their kids were filming. And so thankfully they loved our daughter Aurora, and they would entertain her. We had teenagers who were in the movie, and sometimes when they weren't on set, then they would, play with her. So she felt like a rock star while we were filming.
And I think that brings up a good point, because if you're a mom out there tuning in and listening and you have any kind of a job, it's hard to manage a job and motherhood at the same time. And leaning into your community is huge, And so for you guys, you leaned into the community that was at the film site, but that became kind of extended family for you, and I think that that's a really beautiful place for us to wind down our conversation, because I think parenting is a long journey, and it's a wonderful journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you need a community around you, Christian community, Christian people that are Christ centered, who can come alongside of you, who can help love on your kids, who can help pray for your kids, who can help you in the journey of parenting. And so I just want to thank you both for joining us today. This has been delightful. And friends, I want to remind you the name of the movie is Aria Appleton Shines. And it is really delightful. I have 2 granddaughters. I might show it to them next week when they're down here. And yeah, it's very, very fun. It's got a lot of music in it. It's got a lot of silliness in it, and it'll make you laugh, but it will open up some great conversations. And again, for those of you who are parents, open up the conversation, because you want your kids ultimately to follow Jesus. And they're not going to do that if they don't feel heard by you. So open up the conversation, listen well, lean in, have a good conversation about some of these issues that really aren't going to go away anytime soon, So thank you so much, both of you, for being here today. And, we'll see you all next time for another episode of the Connected Mom Podcast. Thanks for joining us today.